everybody, I'm Seda.
I'm Fia, and today we are doing part one of a series of videos where we talk about Celtic deities.
And of course, we're going to make other videos for other pantheons as well.
Yep.
Today, we're going to be talking about the Morrigan and Brigid. Before we get started, I'm just going to say right now that Celtic names are incredibly hard to say,
Especially if you don't speak Gaelic.
and especially if you don't follow this pantheon. So we had a little issues, and we're going to have a little issues pronouncing a lot of the names.
Yeah.
So bear with us, and please don't take any offense to how we...
We're trying really hard to say them right, but they're spelt in a way that's not familiar with us.
Yeah, and I had to Google for like 5 minutes how to pronounce one name, and it was just hard. So, alright, so we're gonna get started. I did a lot of research yesterday and today about the Morrigan. The Morrigan is formerly the goddess of war. She is also known as the Great Goddess. And I'm sorry, my brain went. Yeah, I know. I had to have a piece of paper to remember everything about her because there was a lot of information.
Mm-hmm.
So let me see really quick. She is a bird goddess, an earth goddess, a sovereignty goddess, and it is said that her breasts not only nourish the living but regenerate the dead, which, how boobs do that, I mean, it kind of makes sense to me.
I mean, like, she's one heck of a woman.
She
needless to say.
Awesome. Now, she was the original member of the Tuatha De Danann, which is essentially a big group of gods who followed another goddess.
I think her name was
Duna?
I think it was Duna.
I think it was Duna. Okay. So,
Do
sorry,
not
I
quote
didn't write
me
it
on
down.
that.
I didn't write
I'm
it.
sorry.
Alright. That was just like a random fun fact. She was one of the original members, which I find it funny that another goddess was worshipping another goddess. Like, that's cool. So the Morrigan was a shape changer, and she usually, well, she was referred to as the triple goddess, kind of like Hecate in another pantheon. Essentially, she would appear as a virgin, a mother, or a hag. She also was known for changing into a battle crow, a raven, a vulture, or even something called a beam nigi, which is like, sorry if I pronounced that wrong, I'm really bad at this. It was essentially this giant bird-like being with like red bird feet, kind of like webbed feet, and they had like large saggy boobs that if you managed to latch onto one and like eat its breast milk, it would grant you 3 wishes. But you had to ask the being 3 questions, and if she asks you 3 questions as well. And if you lie to her at all, then either your wish doesn't get granted or she kills you. I don't know.
All the page that we read this from said was you're gonna have a bad time.
Basically. Like, it literally said, and I quote, "That's too bad for you." So, we don't know what happens, but I think you either die or you don't get your wish granted. I don't know. But people thought that she was one, or people also thought that she was Banshee, but I'll get into that in a little bit. She was super, super fast at shapeshifting, which is why the triple goddess image kind of came into play. She thought that she was, like, people thought that she was so fast that, there was after images of her that they literally thought there was 3 of her. But that's kind of a misconception, as like the other 2 people that were there with her were more than likely one of her sisters or another being, like Bad, I don't know how to pronounce her name, Bad, and Nimhain were her sisters, and other people who were likely to join were Anand or Thea, for example. Though honestly, she would often appear alone. Though this group together was honestly the most terrifying Holy Trinity in existence. Literally, soldiers would run from her and essentially pee themselves because they were so scared of her. Like, honestly, they would.
I strive to be that terrifying.
They were literally that scared of her. So yeah. She was often seen as the bringer of death or like a foreteller of death. But I mean, she did that, but she was more like a transporter between life and death. One of her main symbols is a crow, and crows, even though they're an omen of death, usually aren't the bringers of death, much like she is. They're more like they eat the body and transform it into death, essentially. So that was a common misconception. People think she brings death upon you, which isn't true. But it kind of brings me to my next point, which is she was often seen as a banshee, which I mentioned earlier. There was a story with a person, well, with another god, I assume, called Helene? Holland? Don't know how to pronounce it.
I'm calling him
Cuchulainn. Um, he basically like sees her on a cow that she's like riding to some place, I can't remember, and he doesn't know essentially who she is, and she was I think looking like a hag, and he insulted her, and before he could attack her she transformed into a crow and perched on a nearby branch. Then he realized who she was, and initially tried to apologize, like, oh, if I had known that that was you, I wouldn't have said those things.
Let me tell you why you're wrong.
This is the Morrigan we're talking about. She was terrifying and, from what I understand, a little unforgiving. So she started basically foretelling a lot of warnings for him. The main one being that he was going to die in this battle. In one version of his death story, he rides into battle to meet his enemies, and he sees an image of the Morrigan as a hag washing his bloody armor in a river nearby, and later on, he dies. Um, Now, this is why she's connected to banshees. Banshees originally were women who died in childbirth. And the original legend goes that if a woman died in childbirth and her laundry wasn't done, this is petty. If her laundry wasn't done, that she was essentially brought back to life and she had to wash laundry forever until her natural death. And if people saw these wash ladies washing their clothes in the river, it was seen to be as an omen of their death. So that's why the Morrigan washing Cuchulainn's bloody armor in the river was an omen of his death, and of course he died. And yeah, so let's see.
So, moral of the story: be nice to everyone,
please. In some writings, she is seen as a healer or the protector of the land, which is kind of interesting. In Ireland, she is the goddess of death and the goddess of the dead. And again, she is seen as death by some people, but she's not death. She's more like the keeper of death, and obviously she is terrifying. She is absolutely terrifying. Anyway, the Morrigan kind of represents the loss of power and the, I don't know how to pronounce this, finitude of the lifespan. So, like, you don't live forever, essentially. She represents her own power, reincarnation, rebirth, and the point of view that most people don't see, which is wisdom with age, which never dies, honestly. Pun not intended. In Ireland, the Morgue, or the Morrigan, and Babs would meld together and take on the visage of a hag. And theories say that in these times, the men were those who were more than likely to fear the elderly and be disrespectful to them. More so women. So the Morrigan essentially would go up to these people looking like a hag and kind of what I think is get their reaction, see how they treat her, and punish and terrify them accordingly.
I mean, if they were nice, then obviously she was like, good, good, good,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then walk away. But if you were mean, again, moral of the story, don't be mean, especially to old people.
Especially to old people.
Especially to old ladies.
Mm-hmm.
Specifically those guys.
Because they will probably make you shit yourself.
Right? The most terrifying people in the world are old ladies. Just as awesome as, like, and sweet as they are, they're also very terrifying.
Oh, yeah. And some of her symbolism includes birds, which is, you know, crows, ravens, vultures, that sort of thing. Birds of prey, or birds that kind of symbolize death. A bird's head. Breasts, obviously. And the number 3 to represent the triple goddess. And yeah, I mean, there's so much more information I could have gotten on her, but we don't have time to talk about all that. So,
yay!
And now your turn.
Now we are going to talk about Brigid. I'm sorry if I'm saying it wrong. Brigid, or otherwise known as the Mistress of the Mantle, is considered to be the sister or virgin aspect of the Morrigan, or the great goddess. She's the young one, the kid, the maiden. I mean, she's considered to be a personification of that. She's not technically the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And she is also the goddess of poetry, light, healing, smithcraft, and inspiration. There's actually, I forgot what the story is, but they mentioned her and they pretty much equated her to the goddess of all poetry, and how poets were, like, always using her as their muse. Because,
yeah.
I would too. In Britain, she is seen as justice and authority in their country. Like, nowadays, she's actually on, her face is on one of their coins.
Really? I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
she has like a coin.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Cows are sacred to her as well as livestock. And Imbolc is her festival. I'm sorry if I said that wrong. It's spelled Imbolc. I'm sorry.
I'm pretty sure that's Imbolc.
Imbolc, yeah. She is the daughter of the father god, Dagda, and a poet. She invented keening, and I have a story on how she did that, like, later on. But keening is basically like singing and weeping at the same time, which is
it sounds silly, but
it sounds silly, but it's actually, like, heart-wrenchingly sad to listen to.
Apparently.
Yeah. Wells are sacred to her as well as serpents, but serpents are specifically, like, considered sacred to her in Scotland.
Mm-hmm.
She was said to be born at the exact moment of daybreak, and rays of fire were beaming from her head when she came out. Like, that's how she was born.
Fire crotch of you. Like, honestly, holy crap.
Like
I
aspire to be that extra. I aspire to be that extra in that.
That sounds like it would have burned.
Right?
So bad.
And this is why cows are sacred to her. She was actually fed milk from a sacred cow that came from the other world. And now to the story of how she invented keening. She married an Irish king named Bress in order to bring peace between their warring families, and had 3 sons, and they had 3 sons together. Their plan didn't work out so well. The marriage didn't stop them families from hating each other, and years later, after they got married, they ended up going into battle. Brigid's oldest son struck the first blow and killed the smith from the other, clan, using a hammer that he learned how to make from his mom. And but the smith, as he fell, managed to land a killing blow on her oldest son as well, and he died. And with the grief of losing her son, tripled by the grief of seeing both sides of her families killing each other, she held her son's body and lamented his death. And it was so loud that the entirety of Ireland could hear it. And it was so heart-wrenchingly sad that the families ended up leaving the battle. Like, they didn't stay. They didn't keep fighting. They left and then forged peace. And that is how she became seen as a goddess of peace and unity.
Huh.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And that's how she invented keening. Keening is what she did. That was what was heard all throughout Ireland. And yeah.
And it's also sort of connected to banshees as well.
Yes, because banshees would, you know, make the same noise as a foretelling of your death.
Mm-hmm.
Another cute little thing that I did not know before researching this. So you know that tradition of throwing a penny in a well and making a wish at the same time? Well, that came from Brigid as well. She was known to reward any offerings given to her. And so it became a tradition to throw a coin in one of her wells, and she would grant you a wish for doing that. And that's how that started. So every time you flicked a penny into a well and made a wish, you were making an offering to Brigid. Without even knowing it.
So I've done that like a million times.
Me too!
And surprisingly enough, most of those wishes were granted. Yeah.
Dude,
it works so well.
I know,
really
like
does.
she does not disappoint.
Yeah. And you know, she kind of every time she was telling me about a lot of the stories.
There's a lot of stuff I left out because I didn't want this video to be super long.
Yeah, and this is actually the shortest video we'll have on our channel.
Yeah.
No, but when she read the initial stories to me and talked about like who she was as a goddess, I immediately thought of Persephone for some reason.
Yeah. I mean, the difference is Persephone is also the queen of the underworld. Wow.
Yeah.
She does not have any real connections with death at all, other than the keening.
Yeah. So yeah, that's what that is.
We are actually deciding on the gods, like type of gods that we're doing for each pantheon through polls on our aminos on the Hatchling clan amino.
Yep.
And it was created by Dragon Feather. So
yeah,
if you gotta go and check that out, you can decide which gods or goddesses we're gonna do next.
Mm-hmm. Or if you want to, comment down below.
Obviously.
In the near future, we're planning on doing gods from the Greek pantheon.
I can answer a lot more of those questions.
Me too.
I know a lot about Greek.
And the Norse pantheon, which
she'll know more about.
Yeah. Also, if you have any other pantheon that you would like us to dive into, the most we know about are the Greek and the Norse pantheon.
Because I'm a Hellenistic witch and she's a heathenistic witch.
Yep. So this was actually a really, really interesting learning experience.
Yeah. I'm definitely looking forward to more.
Yeah. Like, I usually hate research, but I was having a lot of fun looking up stories on this. So,
yes.
If you have any suggestions, just shoot us a comment, and also we'll probably reply to it. I know I will.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And, do you want to close, or do you want me to?
Go.
All right. So, if you like this video and want to see more, you can give the video a like, subscribe to us, and possibly hit the notification bell, because it'll let you know when all of our videos are coming out. And yeah, so have a wonderful night/day, and many blessings to you.